Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. To introduce myself, my name is Manjunatha Gali. I'm part of Citrix Ready team leading the desktop ecosystem. I'm your host for today's webinar, and today we have Atlantis Computing with us. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, and I would like to welcome you all to the Citrix Ready technical webinar series, where we showcase how Citrix and our partners have integrated to deliver valuable products and solutions to common problems faced by our customers. Presenting today, we have Mark Nijmeijer, Director of Product Management from Atlantis Computing. To introduce Citrix Ready is an end-to-end technology partner program that showcases and recommends third-party products, solutions, and services that demonstrates compatibility with Citrix products. Customers can quickly and easily find solutions recommended by Citrix in the Citrix Ready marketplace by navigating to citrixready.com/ready. For more information on the Citrix Ready program, you can navigate to citrix.com/partnerprogram/citrixready. Moving on, Citrix Ready program was launched in the year 2007. Citrix Ready program has 950 plus technology partners with over 25,000 product verifications and over 2 lakh online catalog page views. A brief introduction about Atlantis Computing. Atlantis Computing was founded in the year 2006 and our Citrix Ready partner since 2010. In 2009, Atlantis delivered its first product, Atlantis ILIO, for use in virtual desktop environments, and very quickly landed some of the largest desktop virtualization projects in the world amongst 600 plus customers. Along the way, Atlantis has gained alliances with the largest computing, virtualization, and storage vendors in the industry and attracted top-tier investors who have bought into huge opportunities for Atlantis to effect an unprecedented shift in the way customers buy and use storage. Today, we are going to learn how to build a scalable, high-performance, hyper-converged solution for our Citrix environment, and also how to reduce complexity by eliminating complex SAN or NAS storage for our VDI deployment using Atlantis storage solutions. Before we start the presentation, if you have any questions during the webinar, please use our question panel on the right-hand side, and we will take your questions in the question and answer session. So without any further delay, please welcome our speaker, Mark Nijmeijer, Director of Product Management, Atlantis Computing. Hi, Mark. Mark, are you there? Can you hear us?
Oh, sorry, I was talking on mute, of course.
No problem, Mark. Over to you.
Thanks for the great introduction there. My name is Mark Nijmeijer, as Manju already said. I'm Director of Product Management here at Atlantis. I'm very excited to talk to all of you on the phone today. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm located in the sunny California in the Silicon Valley. This is where Atlantis is headquartered. We're actually down the street from the Citrix headquarters down in Sunnyvale. Atlantis, for those who don't know us at all, we are a software-defined storage company. We are 100% software. We work with any server vendor, any storage. But our goal in life basically is to give you more performance and more capacity out of the resources that you already have. Very well aligned, very well partnerships with all the big players out there. We have a lot of VDI deployments out in the market today. We're actually close to 1,000 deployments worldwide. Across the world, we're managing something like 40 petabytes of storage. So a very large sizable deployment of storage out there. And you can see that in this report that I'm showing you on the screen right now. This is a report of Project VRC that my good friends Jeroen and Ruben prepared from the Netherlands. Every year they do a survey of the marketplace, and somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people typically respond. The graph on the screen are the results from last year. The results from this year actually came in just last month, and you can see that Atlantis is making very quick headway in presenting and providing storage for VDI and for XenApp deployments. We actually doubled our market share from about 4% to about 7.5% over the last year. If you look at VDI, it's pretty well known that storage is one of the pain points in designing, in implementing a very successful VDI deployment. And part of this is related to the comparison against the traditional PC. Typically, of course, you put VDI, virtual desktops, in place to replace those aging, those older PCs that people have on their desk, under their desks, and so on. And people, by using that traditional PC, people are used to a particular performance that they're getting out of that PC, right? Every PC has its own hard disk in there. Typically, that's a 7200 RPM hard disk that gives you a particular level of performance. Applications start at a particular time. You're very used to that, right? If you look at the cost for that per PC, it's very well known as well. There's a cost associated with your CPU, with your RAM, and with your storage. Storage is relatively cheap. You can buy a multi-terabyte hard disk at Fry's or at Best Buy for about $60, $80, $100, right? If you compare that to how you design a virtual desktop environment, it's completely different. The RAM, your CPU will be cheaper because you're actually sharing those amongst virtual desktops. But to give you the same amount of user experience, the same amount of performance, you will need to spend a lot more on SAN. To give you that 80 to 150 IOPS per user that you get out of a traditional PC, you would need to spend about $1,000 on SAN storage just to give you that performance. This is not just what Atlantis thinks. If you read the reports by IDC, by Gartner, they are very clear that SAN storage, the cost of your storage in a VDI or in an SBC deployment, in a XenApp deployment, is somewhere around 50–60% of your overall cost. So the graph I have on the screen right now is basically splitting out, is analyzing the cost, the complete cost of moving to VDI. Storage about $1,000, Microsoft $100, your thin client about $300. Of course, you need a license for your broker. That is another $200, and your server and your networking piece is only $100. Right? So storage is a very, very big cost, and typically this can provide a barrier to entry to moving to growing your VDI estates. If you look out in the markets, there is a very strong trend right now around hyper-converged. A lot of people are interested in replacing their very specialized storage hardware with something that they can build themselves out of commodity hardware, so commodity servers, commodity hard disks, and so on, giving people the same performance, the same management capabilities as those enterprise storage platforms, but at a much lower cost. And Atlantis, the goal of Atlantis is to help you get there. We build software that can take storage and compute that are coming from commodity servers and build an enterprise level hyper-converged platform out of that. The next few slides are going to talk about that, how it works, what the benefits are, and so on. But that is basically the context of this presentation, is how to build that perfect hyper-converged solution, and in today's case, for a complete XenDesktop environment. So like I said, Atlantis USX is a 100% software solution. We don't need any specialized hardware. We don't need any specialized PC boards. It's very easy to deploy because it's just software. We can run on any hypervisor, so we support Citrix XenServer as well as ESX as well as Hyper-V. It's very easy to deploy our software, to manage our software, and so on. I'll go into that in a slide or two. And like I mentioned before, our goal in live is to lower the cost of storage, much lower than what you typically pay for an enterprise storage solution. It's even lower in cost than your typical hyper-converged appliances that you can buy out in the market today. We'll give you a lot more performance. A lot of our technology is using, it's basically providing a lot more performance than you typically get out of your storage. And we do that by making very intelligent use of server resources. I'm going to explain that in an upcoming slide. And then it's very flexible. Our solution, because it is storage, is very flexible. You can install it on any server form factor, whether that's a hyper-dense 2U appliance, where there's the 4 nodes in there, whether that's 1U, 2U, 4U rack mount servers, or whether that's blades. You can install our software on any server. And we can work with any storage as well. We can optimize storage, local storage. We can optimize SAN. We can optimize NAS, et cetera, et cetera. So very flexible. You can use our solution in pretty much any problem that you throw at us. Let me spend some time on explaining how it is that Atlantis USX is so simple to deploy and manage. Our management UI is a simple a virtual appliance. You import it as an OVF on your hypervisor, and that basically becomes the nexus, the central management point for all your storage and all your computes in your data center. Right? So you import our application. You tell us which resources in your data center we can use, and we typically get it from either from vCenter or we query the XenServer masters and so on. You tell us exactly which servers, which physical servers we can use, and you tell us exactly which storage we can use. And then we go out and we automatically install all of those required components on those hypervisors to consume those resources and provide those back as optimized resources back to your VDI applications and so on. So automatically our software gets installed on all the physical servers in your machine, and then we take that storage that you give to us, we optimize that, and we provide that back to your application. So in the XenDesktop case, we would become a data store that XenDesktop can provision your desktops in. Because we're doing a lot of optimization in our storage stack, like inline deduplication, like compression, like coalescing, we can very easily give you a much better performance than a regular spinning disk or even an SSD, right? So the test that I have on the screen today is what we call Passmark. It's a benchmarking tool that you can run against either your physical machine or your virtual desktop. And one of the tests that is available in this tool is the disk mark test. And this basically puts your disk through a stress test, through a performance test. And once the test is done, it will give it a score of how fast, how performant your disk is. And then it compares that against disk devices that other people have uploaded. So in this case, we took our software combined with some SSD devices, and we compared that against a spinning disk, a 500 gig spinning disk, and an Apple SSD result that was uploaded as well. And you can see that our storage, our optimized storage, is a lot faster than even an Apple SSD, right? And that gives you that user experience that you're looking for. You want desktops that run at least as fast as your old physical PC that you're replacing, but preferably you want to run it much faster, because a lot of people use like ultrabooks at home with SSDs in them, so they're used to opening applications really fast. And if you don't provide them with a virtual desktop that is faster or that they can really use to really be productive at work, people will go back to either their personal device or their old desktop PC. Also, if you look at Windows is really optimized, is really developed to manage its own hard disk, right? Typically, Windows, the legacy Windows installations, they were run on a desktop PC, so they're expecting to have full control over the hard disk that is in that PC. For virtual desktops, all those Windows desktops that are running on a centralized server in your data center, they're all sharing central storage, right? So all those optimizations that that Windows has put in over the years to really optimize access to that single disk, they don't mean anything anymore. They're actually making things worse, right? here you can see we actually tracked the IOPS that Windows is generating, just starting some applications and doing some background stuff and so on. And you can see that the maximum number of IOPS, this is just Windows running by itself and starting some applications. The maximum number of IOPS that we've recorded is about 4,500 IOPS. Right? Think back to the slide I had in the beginning, where a desktop PC can only give you somewhere between 80 to 150, maybe 200 IOPS in certain cases. Right? If you give Windows the opportunity to pull unlimited IOPS from its storage, it will actually use it. So that makes Windows a lot faster. That makes your applications a lot faster to start. Here, once again, in table form, USX, the score for a virtual desktop on our software gives you a score of about 6,000. If you compare that to an Ultrabook, we're looking at about 1,200. If you compare that to a PC, you're looking at about 600, right? And we've done some testing where we basically took a VDI desktop and we limited as 100 IOPS. We did this at the hypervisor level. You're only getting a score of 34. So compare that to our score, we're looking at something that is 200 times better than a VDI desktop that is limited at 100 IOPS. What does this mean? So this is a synthetic benchmark, right? It's a number. It doesn't really mean anything. If you start looking at what those results mean in real-world scenarios, like booting a desktop, you can see what the differences are. Rather than taking 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, I've talked to customers that have boot times of 15 minutes with their desktops. A desktop on Atlantis USX can boot as fast as 12 seconds. Right? Application starts near instantly. I have we've produced some YouTube videos. If you go to our website, there are some user experience videos where I show that you can start like all applications in Office within like 10 seconds, right? If you log into a traditional VDI desktop, application launches are very, very slow, much slower than your traditional physical PC. It can take 5 seconds. It can take 10 seconds. For Outlook to start, sometimes it takes minutes. And then one of the typically underestimated things of moving to VDI is that you cannot use the advanced search capabilities of Outlook and of Explorer anymore. Because they are generating too many IOPS and it will be too expensive to buy the storage to provide those IOPS. The VDI administrators usually disable this advanced searching, this advanced indexing capability. Because our software gives you the performance, you can enable the indexing and searching services. So searches in Outlook and searches in your My Documents or in your Dropbox are near instant. It's very fast to search. Our solution is completely scalable as well. Because we are software, it's very easy to either scale out by adding more and more servers to your deployments, or we can scale up. We can add more storage to your servers and scale up the available capacity that's there, right? And coming back to our flexibility aspects, you can scale out with Flash, but if you really want a big capacity, you can put regular spinning disks in there as well, of course. Let's talk a little bit about what Atlantis USX is under the covers. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. So, like I said, Atlantis USX is a 100% software solution. We install as virtual machines, and our product is really built up in 3 layers. On the bottom, we build a layer that is capable of pooling and abstracting storage hardware. And to us, it doesn't matter if that hardware is local storage, a local spinning disk, local flash, or even local RAM. We can make storage out of local RAM, or whether it's shared storage. And we support any shared storage that the hypervisor supports. So whether that's iSCSI, whether that's Fiber Channel, whether that's an NFS device, Atlantis USX can consume that storage, pool that storage, and then provide a very rich set of data services on top of that to optimize access to that storage. A lot of the IP that Atlantis holds is around our patented inline deduplication capabilities. So Atlantis, over the last almost 10 years now, we've worked and we've optimized our inline deduplication technology So today it is patented, and it's the fastest one in the industry. We can do inline deduplication 3 to 4 times faster than any of our competitors do. And we use this inline deduplication, we use the effects of that to optimize, to accelerate access to any storage. Right? Typically, deduplication happens as a post-process. So you still need, all the storage still goes to, all the storage traffic still goes to your storage, and only in the background they're going to scan and detect those duplicate blocks. What Atlantis does is we filter out those duplicate blocks before it actually hits the storage. And all of the other data services that we have developed over the last 10 years are completely dedupe aware. So, for instance, our I/O acceleration layer, our caching layer, is dedupe aware. So if there are 100 virtual desktops running on a server, and each one of those are requesting the same blocks over and over again, that block only takes one space in our caching layer, rather than having 100 the same blocks taking space in the caching layer. So our caching is dedupe aware and thus much more efficient. We have data services around data management. Think about being able to clone virtual desktops really, really quickly. Because we work at the dedupe layer, for us it's very easy to create a new file that is a complete clone of an already existing file or an already existing virtual desktop, and within seconds, right? So we can give you a full independent new desktop that is a clone of a template within seconds. Just the other week I did some testing on XenServer, and I created 100 desktops, 100 clones of a template within 22 seconds. They were ready to use in 22 seconds for 100 desktops. So think about how much more your management of your virtual desktop estate is going to be as well. USX has data services around data mobility. We have a capability that we call teleport. Think of this as a storage vMotion or being able to move virtual machines between data stores, between storage repositories that is dedupe aware. So when we teleport a virtual machine, we actually detect what the differences are in terms of blocks and storage between the source and the destination, and we will only replicate those blocks that are unique. So rather than transferring 50, 100, or 200 gigs of data between data centers, now you can get by transferring maybe a gig or 2 gigs of data centers. So really speeding up, really making moving virtual machines between volumes, between data centers, much more efficient. We have capabilities around security. We can encrypt data at rest, as well as encrypt data that's in flight. And then we have capabilities around what we call unified storage. Remember, on the bottom over here, we have this pooling capability where we can consume any type of storage. We can expose that storage, whether it doesn't matter what protocol we're using on the bottom. We can expose that storage as what is most efficient for your application, what is most efficient for your management style, right? So we have built-in capabilities around NFS, iSCSI. We're working on things like S3, object storage, Hadoop FS, and so on. So take any kind of storage and expose it as any kind of storage, and we do the translation on the fly. Then on top of those data services layer, we have a very rich management layer. So all our management is policy-based. You tell us what you need out of your storage in terms of capacity, performance, availability. We'll go out, we'll detect, we'll scan those resources that you've given to us to manage, and we'll pick out those resources that are most capable, that are most applicable to give you those policy-based storage requests, basically. So say you want a volume of data store that is sized for 200 completely persistent desktops, complete full clones. We know how to translate that into a storage request. We will create the perfect storage volume that can serve your persistent desktop deployments the best. And then on top of that, we're exposing a complete REST API. So all our management is completely driven through REST API. In fact, our USX Manager, our management UI that you run as a virtual appliance, it only communicates with our services on the back end through REST. So this means that anything you can do in our management UI, you can script, you can build into your in-house DevOps framework. You can start using things like Vivo on VMware VSX. You can build CloudStack, OpenStack integration. We're working on System Center integration, for instance. So it makes it very easy to merge, to integrate the management of your storage into any framework that you're managing today. So that really is USX under the covers. So 3 layers, pooling at the bottom, a very rich set of data services, and then a very rich, easy to use management capability. All right, moving on to hyper-converged architecture. So we basically designed a 4-node hyper-converged appliance that we've completely optimized for a Citrix XenDesktop, a complete Citrix XenDesktop environment. So we're basically taking 4 servers with local flash only, and these servers are your run-of-the-mill Intel servers that are using the Haswell processors. We're adding 384 gigs of RAM. We're running XenServer as the hypervisor on here. And then in terms of storage, we have 4 400 gig SSDs in each of these servers, right? And we're taking that local flash, and through Atlantis USX, we're basically taking that and we're amplifying the available capacity that is locally available, and we provide that optimized storage back to XenDesktop, right? So, and we do that by installing what we call a few volume VMs. These are the equivalent of your storage head units. This is where you connect your NFS storage repository or your SCSI storage repository to. In this case, we've created what we call an all-flash volume, where we're basically taking that local flash that I was talking about, and we're exposing that back to the hypervisor, back to XenDesktop through the NFS protocol. On each server, to consume that local flash, we install a very small VM that we call a service VM. And the role of this service VM is basically consume those local resources and give those to the volumes to basically optimize and expose back to the hypervisor. And we install that on any server that is out there. So this is basically the physical architecture: 4 servers, local flash, Atlantis USX installed on each and every server, and then you can run XenDesktop on top of that. In terms of a logical architecture, this is what it looks like, right? So you have your virtual desktops that are running over here. These are all your virtual desktops over here. Then there is a handful of USX volumes. So this is where you create your storage repositories, where you create your data stores. And then we have a very small service VM that is installed on each and every XenServer. In terms of resiliency, we have built in resiliency, high availability capabilities on each level of our architecture, right? So if one of the volume fails, we have what we call USX HA that automatically takes over the role of that volume VM into a standby HA VM. If there is a failure at the service VM level, we have data protection across all service VMs. So if you lose one of the service VMs, your volumes can continue running because there's data protection across. There is basically a level of replication and mirroring going on between service VMs. If one of your physical hosts fails, this is pretty much the same as one of the service VM failures, right? There is still protection going on across servers, so your desktops can continue running even though one of your servers is down. And same if one of your local disks fails. We have RAID capabilities at the local storage level as well. So a local disk failure doesn't automatically mean that your volume goes down. We have resiliency at that level. So what does this mean for VDI, right? We've sized, we've done a lot of tests on these 4 servers using the login VSI tool to make sure that we can reach these levels, right? So whether you're running stateless or persistent VDI, we're seeing very similar results. right? So for task workers that are relatively light workers, you can scale up to 650 desktops on these 4 nodes. For knowledge workers that are a little bit more resource intensive, we've scaled it up to 500 desktops. And if you're doing the power user with the new login VSI storage workload, we've been able to scale this up to about 250 desktops. Interesting idea there as well is if you're using servers that have the NVIDIA grid cards in them with the new capabilities in XenServer 6.5, you actually can scale up to about 250 desktops using NVIDIA grid. Now, if you look at it from a cost perspective, right, you take these local commodity servers with commodity hardware, and you compare that against the alternatives that you can buy in the market today. Our cost point is very, very attractive. Right? So if you look at your traditional SAN NAS, remember the $1,000 that I was talking about in the beginning? It's $1,000 in storage. There's $100 in server and networking on top of that. So you're looking at a total cost of about $1,100. If you compare that to our friendly competitors, their cost is still somewhere around $450, in some cases up to $600, $700 for the more intense power workloads and so on. If you look at all-flash arrays, for most VDI cases, going all-flash is actually cheaper than going SAN or NAS, but it still isn't as cheap that you can build in a complete hyper-converged environment. So our cost is about $85 for storage and about $100 for server and networking. I have a detailed bill of materials, I think, on the next slide. It's one slide more. If you take this $185, $187 that is on this slide, and you basically translate that, you augment that into the complete cost for your virtual desktops, because the previous slide was just talking about storage and server hardware. The complete cost is what's on the screen right now. So we take this $187 in terms of storage and servers, then you add the cost of your broker, and then you add the cost of Microsoft. So you're looking at a total cost of your desktop. Right? This is everything that you have to spend for your desktop. You're still looking at something that is cheaper than $500 per desktop. So a very real alternative to doing a refresh cycle of your laptops that are out with your employees today, or refreshing those desktop PCs that your employees are using. This is a test result that we've done on this 4-node appliance that I was talking about, right? So here we've taken 510 power user desktops. So 2 gigs of memory per desktop, 2 vCPUs per desktop, and I believe the disk image was 50 gigs per desktop. And we basically run login VSI, which is a benchmarking tool. It's a scalability tool. It tells you how far you can scale your deployment before the user experience reaches a point where it's not acceptable anymore. In this case, it's login VSI thinks the user experience is not acceptable anymore when it's the score reaches 1800 milliseconds. The score is calculated by measuring how long it takes to respond to user interaction. So say a user is typing, and they measure to see how long it takes before the user actually saw that he typed something. Or if he clicks file open, they measure how long it takes before the file open dialog clicks open. Or they measure how long it takes before the print dialog opens up. All those interactions, all those actions that the users typically do. And they measure that and do a very complex calculation on that, and they translate that into basically their VSI score, right? So our score at 100 users or at even at 50 users is very, very low. We start at an aggregate response time of about 800. And as you can see, as we're scaling up our testing with more and more desktops, the user experience stays pretty much completely the same, right? So whether you are user number 25 or you're user number 425, your difference in response time is only 200 milliseconds. That's something that is not noticeable by a typical user, right? Only when we're getting all the way to the top, you see a little blip over here, but it's still well below the threshold where login VDI says, well, this is not acceptable anymore. In previous versions of login VDI, they had a static maximum where basically they always said 4,000 milliseconds is the cutoff. Right? They do a lot more smart analysis nowadays. But just to compare against 4,000, we're way below that. In terms of what we recommend, because I've talked about the architecture in a very broad level, very abstract level, we recommend using one of these servers that's on the screen right now. And we have the flexibility, like I said in the beginning, we have the flexibility of doing of installing our software on these very high dense new servers where there's 4 nodes in a 2U appliance. We have a bunch of rack servers that we like. You see some 2U and some 1U pizza boxes on the screen over here. And then you can install us on blades as well, right? But the recommended architecture for all of these form factors is pretty much the same, right? Use Intel chips 2680s or better. Use Citrix XenServer 6.2 or later. For these densities, we recommend at least 384 gigs of RAM. We need 10 gig networking for the storage traffic to replicate between those servers. And then in terms of storage that is there, it depends on the form factor. So typically we recommend 4 400 gig SSDs or 2 800 gig SSDs for the blades because there's only 2 hard disk slots in there. If you put all of this together, this gives you about 25 terabytes of storage to play with. So your desktops have 25 terabytes of storage that they can use, that they can share amongst each other. What I have on the screen right now is a sample bill of materials that is based on one of those 2U 4-node Supermicro boxes. It uses the new Haswell processors, the 2680V3s. We've loaded this up with the Intel SSDs, so the new highly performant S3710 series. Very nice SSDs, very high endurance, lots of write cycles and so on. These SSDs, combined with our software, probably will last you for 10 or 15 years. The cost of this, including our software, comes down to about $90,000. Right? So if you take that $90,000 and you divide it by 500 desktops that I showed you that we can scale up to, we're looking at a hardware and storage cost of about $179 per desktop. So we're running towards the end of the webinar. I hope I've made a pretty good case that our solution is very simple to manage, very simple to deploy. I've shown you how we can reduce costs compared to our competitors that are out there, whether they're hyper-converged competitors or whether they are traditional SAN and NAS competitors. I've shown you that our performance is a lot better than our competition, as well as a lot better than what we're really comparing against, which is our traditional PC that VDI will replace. And I've shown you how flexible we are, how you can use multiple servers, multiple server vendors, multiple server form factors to choose for your virtual desktop deployments. Like Manju said in the beginning, we've been working with the Citrix Ready team for about 5 years now. Our solution is completely certified with XenDesktop 6, with XenDesktop 7, with XenDesktop 7.5. We are on the HCL for XenServer. So XenServer 6.2 and 6.5, we are in the HCL. So you can be very restful about taking our software and deploying it in your VDI deployments. In terms of next steps, check out the information that is on our marketplace profile. The URL is on our screen. If you want to learn more about Citrix Ready, you can go to the URL that Manju already mentioned. We have a solution page around Hyper-Converged where you can find the bill of materials that I showed you, where you can find more detailed collateral around how to deploy this, what are the reference architectures and so on. So those are available over here. If you have more questions, so please feel free to ask me questions right now in the questions box in GoToWebinar. But if you think of something tomorrow, later today, next week, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter or via email. I have the corporate Twitter handle on the screen, as well as my own one. I'm always on Twitter, so you can always ask me questions there. And if you want to pick up the phone and give us a call, our phone number is right here, and we're ready to take your questions right there. With that, I'd like to hand it back over to Manju and see if there's any questions that came in during my webinar. See if I need to dive into more specifics of any topics. So if you have questions on the phone, on the webinar, please add them to GoToWebinar chat box right now.
Hey, thanks, Mark. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful and very detailed presentation. So yes, we did receive a few questions, and let us now move on to the question and answer session. So the first question is about, can I use your Hyper-Converged solution for XenApp as well?
Yes, you can. So I've been talking predominantly about VDI because that is what we get a lot of questions on. But part of our flexibility is that you can use our solution for XenApp deployments as well. We completely support full installations of XenApp, so you can run independent XenApp virtual machines on our solution. We support deploying XenApp with PVS, where you store the PVS write cache on our storage, and typically we recommend just using memory as storage in that case. So you don't need any physical storage in your machines anymore to store your PVS write cache. You can just use memory, or we are completely compatible with XenApp, the new XenApp and MCS combination as well. So excellent question, and the answer is a sounding yes.
Great. So the next question is about which versions of XenServer do you support?
We support XenServer 6.2 as well as 6.5. We're constantly working with the Citrix teams to do the beta testing. So we were confident that we were going to support 6.5. I think late last year already when the beta was out. We're trying to do our HCL testing, where we're striving to do our certification testing as soon as the official full release of XenServer comes out. So yeah, today it's 6.2 and XenServer 6.5. I would like to take this opportunity to point out, of course, that we are fully certified on ESX as well as Hyper-V. So you can use our solutions on those hypervisors as well if you choose to do so.
Yeah, great, nicely put across. So the next question for you, Mark, is can you use a combination of spinning disk and flash instead of an all-flash approach?
Yeah, so once again, that's another dimension of flexibility. Yeah, in the webinar, I've mainly talked about an all-flash solution. Why all-flash? Because of our inline deduplication and so on, we actually make using all-flash very cost-effective while leveraging the performance of all-flash. But you can use our solution as well with a combination of a little bit of flash and spinning disks. So that in that case, we would use the flash devices as an optimization tier to optimize the traffic to your spinning disks. You can also use all flash in front of shared SAN or shared NAS if you want to deploy our software in that case. So yeah, once again, we're very flexible. We can be deployed in any which way that you want us to be.
Great, Mark. Thank you. So the next question is, how Atlantis solution compared with Citrix provisioning cache in RAM?
That's a great question, and we're getting a lot of questions around that. PVS cache in RAM is a great solution for non-persistent desktops, right? You're using PVS to provision your desktops and stream the desktops to your users. PVS cache in RAM is great because it basically bypasses the need for local disk. However, PVS cache in RAM does not optimize the access to RAM, so it doesn't do any deduplication into RAM. So at the moment you run out of RAM, at the moment your write caches are bigger than what you can keep in RAM, you will have to go to your local storage. And once again, that is not optimized. So at that point in time, your performance will drop down to the performance of local storage. With our solution, we keep everything in RAM because of our compression, because of our deduplication. We can ensure that everything stays in RAM. Plus, our solution provides the same capabilities for persistent desktops, so traditional full clone desktops as well, right? PVS is only suitable for non-persistent, for full desktops, whereas our solution you can use for persistent desktops, non-persistent desktops, full desktops, or like I just was talking about, XenApp desktops as well.
Great, thank you, Mark. So the next question is about clarifying the explanation that you did earlier. The question is, can you clarify again what happens to running XenDesktop VDI machines when a host fails?
So when a host fails, the desktops that are running on that host, of course, go down as well, right? So, and how we handle that is dependent on whether those desktops are persistent desktops or whether they are floating, whether they are full desktops. If they are persistent desktops, we will use VM, or we will use the hypervisor HA to restart those desktops on a different physical host, on a standby node. Your storage is still available. We will make sure that the storage is highly available and is resistant to the host failure. We will, and the hypervisor or the broker will take care of restarting those desktops on a standby node. If they are full desktops, the user will basically lose its session because the desktop is going down. But then they log back in, they reestablish the XenDesktop session. They get assigned a full desktop that is running on a different host, and they can continue working there.
Great. So I have a couple other questions. The next question is, your website has an ILIO trial. Is there a USX trial as well?
Yeah. So, and I see a corresponding question about the differences or the comparison between USX and ILIO. Let me talk about that first before I talk about the trial, Manju.
Okay.
So ILIO is our legacy product. ILIO we've shipped since we've developed ILIO since 2006, 2007. We've shipped ILIO since 2009. It's optimization for virtual desktops. That's what it's goal in life. What USX is basically we've taken the engine of ILIO and we've optimized for any workloads, including virtual desktops. Plus, we've added this pooling capability that I talked about to the bottom of that layer slide. We've completely redeveloped the management stack, and so to expose a REST API and expose a very slick management UI and so on. So ILIO, think of ILIO as the engine. Think of USX as the complete solution. Over time, you'll see us merge together the product lines ILIO and USX, where basically all ILIO functionality is available in USX. Now, let me talk about the trial a little bit. Yes, you can go on the website today to download a free trial of ILIO. This is a very easy way of installing ILIO. It will install ILIO so you can run either 10 virtual desktops on top of it or one XenServer, and it runs this completely in memory. Very easy to install. It takes about 10 minutes to install. You point your desktop pool at it, and you can provision your desktops on it to try this out. It is time unlimited, but it's bound in size. Basically, you can only run 10 desktops on it. We're working on making available a file for USX that will be freely downloadable. USX, the size will be limited to about 400 gig of available capacity. This should be available hopefully within the next few months. We're working on that right now. If you are interested in trying out USX, let us know. Contact us on the email handle that is on your screen right now, and we can have a conversation with you, and we can set up a proof of concept in your lab. So you will work with one of our solution architects to design it we'll come in with a 30-day trial version of our software, and you can run it in your environment for 30 days.
Great, Mark. So that answers 2 questions. So the next question is about, for the environment running with VMware and using the Ilio product from Atlantis, can they use the USX product for the virtual servers?
Yeah, so like I just explained, USX optimizes and provides storage for more than just virtual desktops. So what a lot of our customers do right now is basically take their Ilio environments, upgrade that to USX, and then put the supporting infrastructure on top on USX as well. So run your virtual desktops on USX, but also run your broker, also run your SQL Server, also run Desktop Studio, Desktop Director, solutions like that on top of our software. And you can take it even further, right? If you're running SharePoint, for instance, or Exchange right next to your VDI desktops, you can store that on USX as well, increase the performance and reduce your storage capacity required for those services.
Great. So I see one last question, and we wait for some more time to get some more questions. The last question that I have in my list is, how is the product licensed?
So USX is licensed. So USX for VDI is licensed per VM. So it's an inherent concurrent model. We're counting the number of VMs, and we're reporting on that. So whenever you have a XenDesktop virtual machine, you buy a license from us. USX in general is licensed on a per gigabyte or per terabyte basis. So if you're using us to provide storage for any other application, you're buying it per terabyte. If you're buying it for VDI or for XenApp, it's on a per VM basis. There's no double counting here, so for VDI you don't have to buy the capacity as well. You're getting the capacity that you need to run your VDI. You don't have to pay twice for that.
Great. So there are a couple of other questions regarding the availability of webinar slides and recording. Yes, you do get the recording of this webinar. Who all attended and who are registered for this webinar, they do get the link for downloading this webinar recording. So with that said, we don't have any more questions to answer. So we are about to end today's webinar. I thank you, Mark, for the wonderful presentation and your help on presenting this webinar today.
Excellent.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you all. No problem. So thank you all for attending today's webinar in the Citrix Ready Technical Webinar Series. This concludes our broadcast. Thank you.